The possibility of nuclear war looms in the public imagination more than any other form of conflict. Every missile test, every harsh political speech, every headline with the words nuclear or strike can make it seem as if the world is teetering on the brink. Social media thrives on such fear, amplifying every event until it appears to be a sign of catastrophe. Even mainstream media can sometimes present routine developments without context, leaving the public unsure of what is normal and what is extraordinary. This briefing is intended to give the average reader a framework for separating noise from signal. No one can predict the future, but there are clear differences between the routine churn of international tensions and the real indicators that war, even nuclear war, may be approaching. This is the DEFCON warning system. If you like these articles, please like and subscribe so that others can find these videos as well. Also leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Fear sells. On social media, alarmist headlines spread faster than sober analysis. Content creators chasing clicks often exaggerate events into imminent doomsday scenarios, and mainstream outlets sometimes report military developments without explaining how common they are. The result is that the public is inundated with stories that sound like preludes to war but usually aren't. Certain events tend to raise eyebrows in the news cycle and spark questions about whether conflict is imminent. Yet most of these actions are common in international relations and rarely indicate war is at hand. Military aircraft patrols, reports of bombers or fighters flying near another country's airspace are routine. These intercepts happen dozens of times a year. They are posturing, not preparation. Naval maneuvers in international waters, carrier groups or destroyers sailing close to rivals are common demonstrations of freedom of navigation. They can be provocative, but they rarely precede actual conflict. Harsh political rhetoric, leaders often use fiery language, promising devastating retaliation or warning of crossing red lines. Much of it is aimed at domestic audiences and has limited connection to real military decisions. Sanctions and counter-sanctions. Economic pressure can be painful, but the imposition of sanctions alone is not usually a trigger for war. It is more often a substitute for direct military confrontation. This does not mean that economic warfare does not lead to military conflict, but these are rare instances, not everyday occurrences. Routine missile or nuclear tests. States such as North Korea frequently launch missiles or conduct tests. These are intended to gain leverage, demonstrate capability, or provoke attention, not necessarily to signal an imminent strike. While these developments may appear ominous in isolation, history shows that they are usually part of the background noise of international competition. True signs of impending conflict are harder to dismiss, and they rarely go unnoticed. The following kinds of developments are far more concerning than routine flights or political threats: unscheduled, large-scale troop movements toward borders or conflict zones, particularly without public explanation. Evacuations of embassies and civilians from a region, which signal that governments believe war is possible. Breakdown of diplomatic channels, including canceled summits, the withdrawal of ambassadors, or silence where there was once dialogue. Shifts in nuclear posture, such as raising nuclear forces to higher alert levels or moving warheads into dispersal positions. Mobilization of strategic assets, including bomber fleets, nuclear submarines, or missile forces being placed on ready status. Information blackout, when once public military communications suddenly grow secretive, suggesting something is being concealed. These are developments worth watching closely, especially if they begin to happen simultaneously. Governments do not always announce their intentions openly, but subtle moves can still betray their thinking. Examples include civil defense measures, such as issuing new shelter instructions or quietly funding preparedness programs. Increased cyber operations targeting power grids, communications, or infrastructure. Sudden stockpiling of critical resources such as food, fuel, or medical supplies. Emergency legislation or executive decrees granting expanded wartime powers. These signals may be less visible to the public, but they are often recognized by analysts as indications of governments preparing for the possibility of conflict. Context also matters. Even in times of high tension, as long as diplomatic channels remain open, the likelihood of war is reduced. Back-channel talks, summits, and even the continuation of negotiations during a crisis are signs that leaders are still looking for alternatives to conflict. By contrast, when leaders stop talking, when rhetoric shifts from deterrence to necessity, and when diplomacy collapses, the danger increases dramatically. The Cuban Missile Crisis escalated to the brink precisely because dialogue nearly broke down, while other Cold War standoffs remained limited because both sides kept talking. For ordinary people, the best defense against fear is critical thinking. Seek multiple reputable sources. Don't rely on a single headline or viral video. Look for confirmation from both national and international outlets and from independent analysts. Watch for convergence. A single event rarely means much, but when multiple indicators line up, concern is justified. Remember history. Most tense moments de-escalate, and nuclear war remains the last resort for any nation. War is costly, dangerous, and unpredictable. Nations know this, which is why escalation, especially toward nuclear conflict, almost never happens without warning. True danger is marked not by rhetoric or routine military maneuvers, but by unusual, sustained, and converging actions that signal preparation for war. The goal is not to live in fear, but to live with awareness. By distinguishing signal from noise, the public can better understand when a crisis is dangerous and when headlines are simply headlines. This is the DEFCON warning system.